Gopijanavalabha Girivaradhari Gopijanavalabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Rajajanarandana Yashodanandana Rajajanarandana Nativa Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Vijanavalabha Girivaradhari Vijanavalabha Girivaradhari Shodanandana Rajajanarandana Yashodanandana Rajajanarandana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Madhava Kunjavihari Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radha. Jaya Radha Samasundara Samasundara. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Nitya Go Hare Ba, Hare Ba, Hare Ba, Hare Ba. Nitya Go Hare Ba, Hare Ba, Hare Ba, Hare Ba. Acharya Sutta Sutta Divine Guest, Abhachan Bhakti Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Iskan Pamacharya Divine Guest Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Yo Vishnu Param Sabri Acharya Sutta Sutta Divine Guest, Srila Bhakti Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Anand Guru Vaishnava Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Vidas Thakur Ki Jai. Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Sri Gaura Bhakta Ki Jai Shri Shiva Hare Krishna Gopika Shyam Radha Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadip Dham Ki Jai Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Yamuna Mai Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Kantarajman Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande. All glories to the simple devotees. All glories to the simple devotees. All glories to the simple devotees. All glories, Shri Guru and Shri Guranga. All glories to the Prabhupada Ki.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna. Welcome to all the devotees online. Thank you very much for joining us on our session on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, verses 6 to 15, Part 2. Just a sound check. Please let me know in the chat if my sound is audible. Thank you very much. Wonderful. Let us start with the prayers. Om Jnana Timivandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasme Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavinebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Sarva Shastra Bhiyusha Sarva Vedeka Satphala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya Sarva Lokaitrit Prada Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavato Prabhu Kali Dvanda Didaditya Shri Krishna Parivartita O Srimad Bhagavatam, O nectar churned from the ocean of all Vedic scriptures, O most prominent transcendental fruit of all the Vedas, O you are enriched with the jewels of all spiritual philosophic conclusions, O you grant spiritual vision to all the people of the world, O life breath of the Vaishnava devotees. O Lord, you are the sun which has arisen to dispel the darkness of Kali Yuga. You are actually Lord Krishna, who has returned amongst us. Paramananda Pataya, Prema Varshasharayate, Sarvada Sarva Sevyaya, Shri Krishnaya Namastute. O Srimad Bhagavatam, offer my respectful obeisances unto you. By reading you, one attains transcendental bliss. For your syllables rain pure love of God upon the reader. You are always to be served by everyone, for you are an incarnation of Lord Krishna. Madhyaka bandhu mat sangim mad guru man mahadana man nishtaraka mad bhagya mad ananda namastute. O Srimad Bhagavatam, O my only friend, O my companion, O my teacher, O my great wealth, O my deliverer, O my good fortune, O my bliss, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Asadu sadhu tadahin atini chochataraka hanamuncha kadachin mam premna ritkatayo spura. O Srimad Bhagavatam, O giver of saintliness to the unsaintly, O uplifter of the very fallen, Please do not ever leave me. Please become manifest upon my heart and my throat, accompany my pure love of Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Janmadyasya yatonvayaditarata charte swabhigna swarat tene brahma hidaya adikavaye muyanti yatsuraya tejo vari mridam yatha vinimayo yatrati sargom risha damna swena sada nirastakuhakam satyam param dhimahi. O my Lord Krishna, O my Lord, Sri Krishna, son of Vasudeva, O all-pervading personality of Godhead, offer my respectful obeisance unto you. I meditate upon Lord Sri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the primal cause of all causes of creation, sustenance, and destructions of the manifested universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations, and he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion, as one is bewildered by the illusory representations of water seen in fire, or land seen on water. Only because of him do the material universes, temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature, appear factual, although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Sri Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from the illusory representation of the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. Prayanalpaisha sabhya kalavasmin yuge jana mandasumanda matayo mandabhagyo padhrita. O learned one, in this iron age of Kali, men have but short lives. They are quarrelsome, lazy, misguided, unlucky, and above all, always disturbed. Narayanam namaskritya naranchaiva narotamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udirayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisance unto the personality of God at Narayan, unto Nara Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Savaipum saparo dharmo yato bhakti radokshaje ahaitukya pratihata yatma suprasiddhati. The supreme occupation, dharma, for all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayatya Suvairagyam Jnanam Chayat Ahitikam. By rendering devotional service under the personality of God as Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. Vadanti tattva vidas tattvam yajnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagwaniti sabhyate. Learned transcendentals who know the absolute truth, called in non-dual substance, Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. Shushrushroshradhanasya Vasudeva Kataruchi Syan Mahat Sevaya Vipra Punya Tirtha Nishevanat. O twice born sages, by serving those devotees are completely freed from all service, from all vice, great service is done. By such service, one gains affinity for hearing the messages of Vasudeva. Shranutam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Ridyantastoya Badrani Vidunoti Shuritsatam. Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is Paramatma, Supersoul in everyone's heart, and a benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses the desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtues when properly heard and chanted. Nasta prayashu bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavatutama sloke bhaktir bhavati nashtiki. By regular attendance in the class on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotees, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed in loving service unto the personality of Godhead, whose praise with transcendental songs is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We are covering Srimad Bhagavatam based on the teachings of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So let us hear some feedback from the devotees on our session that we covered last week, part 1. actually, or verses 6 to 10. So let us know in the chat, or if you want, you're most welcome to unmute yourself and share with us what you took home from last week's lesson. Hemavati Radhika says, devotional service should be unmotivated and uninterrupted. Yes, and that is a very exalted platform. And that means we don't take a TV break. Oh, let me see, some movie, or I need a holiday now. December holiday, yippee, it's coming. December holiday, let's go. No, we need to keep constant engagement in devotional service, uninterrupted and unmotivated. Absolutely no material tinge. Why am I rendering devotional service? Prabhupada says, because I am a servant of Krishna. It behooves a servant to serve the master. Mother Lash says, if you have a material body, then you are spiritually diseased. Yes, wonderful point Prabhupada made. When you have no material body or anarthas, then you are spiritually healthy. Yes. So now when we meet somebody, it's interesting. When you meet someone, you say, how are you? Good morning. I'm doing good, doing okay. But actually, they are not doing okay. And the reason they're not doing okay is because we are materially diseased. Say somebody says, how are you? Spiritually diseased. But instead of saying spiritually diseased, how are you? Hare Krishna. I need medicine. So you're taking the medication, the holy name. The Acharya says, ultimate good for all living entities to engage in devotional service. Yes. Nalini Canto Prabhu, devotees sees with the ears, Prabhupada says. Devotees hear with the ears, they see with the ears. Tanuja said, devotional service must be pure in quality and not for personal enjoyment. And it's very difficult. In the beginning, Prabhupada allowed that, right? It's natural, just like, you have to enjoy prasad. You have to enjoy the kirtan. So in the beginning, to enjoy that environment and devotional service is not wrong. But if we want to advance further and further, the science is that the more you give pleasure to Krishna, believe it or not, the more you get pleasure, which is completely different or completely opposed to what we educate in the material world. In the material world, the more I give pleasure to my senses, the more I enjoy. In the spiritual world, the more I give pleasure to Krishna's senses, the more I enjoy. Totally opposite. So unfortunately, we have been brainwashed in the wrong way. Bhakti comes from bhakti. Yes, Mother Les says, bhakti is independent, totally independent. Bhakti is completely swarat, independent, and by engaging in the process of devotional. So, for example, chanting Hare Krishna. Chanting Hare Krishna pleases Radha and Krishna. And because it pleases Radha and Krishna, then that increases our devotion, our bhakti. So any devotional practice increases more devotional practice. Therefore, Prabhupada would also say that the result of devotional service is more devotional service. The result of chanting is more chanting. The result of hearing is more hearing. The result of spiritual life is more spiritual life. The result of love is more love. Anandamurdi Vardhanam, ever increasing ocean of bliss. Tanuja, attachment to Krishna comes from attentive hearing, chanting, and constant devotional service. Yes, wherever we give our attention, that is where the focus is, and that is where the attachment lies. So therefore, attentiveness is key. And unfortunately, we have to make best use of a bad bargain. It would be wonderful to sit with all the devotees, seeing all the devotees in a room, getting everyone's darshan, and because Zoom cannot give you one thing. You can hear the sound, you can see the visuals, but the energy cannot be transmitted. Right? Your energy that you're currently experiencing by hearing me and hearing the glories of the Bhagavatam, that is, in one sense, according to this current situation that we're in, relative to your own experience. When we are together in one room, sadhu sangha, associating, the benefit of that association is that now you can experience the energy of everyone, the collective energy, the collective prayer, the collective vibration, and Krishna's reciprocation. If Krishna, for example, I may be spaced out, and I'm coming in there and I'm sharing, I'm trying my best to share, and there may be the few devotees in that audience that is so focused, so absorbed, so attentive, that Krishna reciprocates with them. And when Krishna reciprocates with them, guess what happens? You feel that energy, you feel that vibration. Your hair stand on end. You can sense that there's something here, right? You become inspired. So that, unfortunately, through the internet, you cannot experience. That energy cannot be transmitted. Somebody says, wow, that was a far out kirtan. That experience of a far out kirtan, you cannot experience over the internet. It's the limitation of the material facility. Whereas spiritual vibration can be experienced in association. And that's the uniqueness. So ideally, we should have this in a live session with everyone, because then it becomes more powerful, more potent. But we make best use of a bad bargain. Another thing is when you together in a room, then there's less distraction. Now you can be distracted, right? So one has to always protect oneself. That here one has the opportunity to hear the Bhagavatam, to learn, and therefore it behooves, and it means that we need to take ownership individually to cut all distractions. We need to create that sacred space and cut all distractions, because this time with the Bhagavatam, whether it's like this, in a class or even reading, that time is very special, and you are physically, directly with Krishna. It's your personal contact, association with Krishna, and therefore nothing should disturb that. And we need to cultivate that type of cultivate that focus of not being interrupted. Rasaraj Prabhu says, Bhakti Sanjay de Bhakti. Bhakti comes from Bhakti, yes. Shamananda Prabhu says, if our lifestyle activities are not arranged in pursuits of knowing and serving the Supreme, then everything is Shraveva Kevalam. Yes, total waste of time. It's a bold statement by Bhagavatam, but it's the truth. And Sukadeva Goswami Prabhu says, devotional service must be engaged with pure love. So thank you very much for sharing that. Let us proceed with part 2, today's verses. So we covered from the first part, which was verses 6 to 10. And these verses answered the first 2 questions, which is, what is the ultimate good and the essence of all scriptures? And the answer is bhakti, devotional service. So we have come to a conclusion, if we accept this firmly within our heart, of the essence of all scriptures. There are billions of verses in the Vedas. And instead of having to read all the verses, understand the conclusion of all the verses, which may take billions and billions of lifetimes to realize, we are being given the essence. And now if we embrace that essence, make it part of our existence, the foundational part of our existence, and our ultimate goal, our life will be sublime. Then we're going to be covering now from verses 11 to 15. So I'm going to recap the verses that we covered, right? And then we'll start. By these verses that we've been given, that we went over last week, we have been given the right road. And all of us have started this journey on this right road, the road of pure devotional service. I'm just reading Rasara Prabhu is commenting, Dandavat class of men, those who don't hear, those who don't inquire of the right road. That's not the right devotee that we want to be. Srila Bhakti Siddhama, Srila Bhakti Thakur, even Srila Prabhupada have encouraged us to hear, to inquire about the glories of the Supreme Lord, so that we can understand the right road. And the right road is pure devotional service. So we're on the right road. Now, there may be many distractions to take us on a detour. Voidism, materialism, mysticism, impersonalism. These are detours. And unfortunately, these detours are not conducive to satisfying the soul. We are on this road of personalism, understanding the supreme personality of Godhead, trying to revive our pure devotion to Krishna. So we're on the right road. Now we are on the right road. Yes, there's going to be obstacles. No doubt. There will be obstacles. Guaranteed there'll be obstacles. And for each individual, the obstacles may be different. Even though the obstacle may be the same for two individuals, their experience of the obstacles may be different because we all individuals. So even if there's obstacles, never stop on this journey. Try to overcome the obstacles. How do you overcome the obstacles? In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says that for those who are dedicated to serving me with love and devotion, I give them the strength by which to overcome the obstacles. Lord Krishna never says to those who are dedicated to me with love and devotion, there is no obstacles. No, there will be obstacles. Otherwise, how are you going to test your love and devotion? How are you going to test that you're never going to give up this road? How are you going to test your determination and your conviction and faith? Krishna is going to put obstacles. Maya is going to put obstacles. Just by the nature that you're in this material world, there's obstacles. So obstacles will be there. You have to accept it. The challenge is not to be stopped by the obstacles, to keep going. There'll be distractions in the form of obstacles. Keep going. We may, ourselves be very weak. We may have many weaknesses to traverse this path. But the fact that I'm on the right road means the road itself will take me to perfection. Prabhupada in the Nectar of Instruction says that those who are in Krishna consciousness, the process itself will force you to perfection. You just have to be on the right road. Just be on that road. And the road of Krishna consciousness, hearing, chanting, glorification, association, prasadam, that will take you to perfection. We may even take few steps back while on this road. And this may be the challenge. We go few steps forward, few steps back, few steps back, few steps forward. And in this way, we may traverse this path. And that's okay. No problem. Even if you take few steps back, you are on the right road. Just keep focusing and keep going. And whether it takes us one lifetime or million lifetimes, it doesn't matter. We're on the right road. Do not take a detour. Those detours, unfortunately, are not conducive for us. So keep on moving. Never give up. Before I move to the next slide, I would like to ask you a question. Why should we not take the detours of voidism, materialism, mysticism, impersonalism? Please share with us. Why do you think we should not take the detours and keep on this path of parodharma, yatho bhaktir adokshaje, the path of devotional service? Somebody might say, no, the detours are nice. What's your realization of why should we not take the detours? Mother Les says, impartial realization of the absolute truth. Yes, you're not going to get complete realization, so don't take that route. Hemavati says, it won't take us to Radha and Krishna. Definitely it won't. Correct. It'll take it. In fact, it'll take you to Radha and Krishna, the phony ones. So if you want the phony ones, that's the route. If you don't want the phony ones, don't take that route. Any others? Tanuj says, because we can become more entangled in material life and drift away from Krishna. Yes. Mother Suloshini said, we will be wasting time. Most definitely wasting time. Shamananda Prabhu says, don't know how long, and if we will find the right road again. Yeah, that maze, you can see that road. It goes into a maze, and we may get lost. In fact, just on this point that Shamananda Prabhu made, one devotee told Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, please bless me that next life I'll come back so I can distribute your books. Now we know Prabhupada, the service of book distribution was very close to Prabhupada's heart, and even Srila Bhakti Maharaj, even within our Sampradaya, very, very important service started by Shamananda in the devotees. So a very important service, and he's telling Prabhupada, bless me that I may come back as a devotee, book distributor. Prabhupada said, don't even take the risk. So even that is risky. What to talk about if you're on the path or the detours? So yes, it's very risky. May take billions and billions of lifetimes to get on this road. So therefore, cherish it, nurture it, shield it, protect it. We have been here, but no gain. Now in Krishna consciousness, there's bliss and pull more and more. Yes, we can just see, just consider before we come into Krishna consciousness, what our situation was. And we've traversed these paths, not just once, billions of times. In fact, we could even put animalism, all the isms, right? Animalisms, another path. So don't even take the animalisms. Don't even take the demigodisms, right? Don't take any other ism, but the path of pure devotional service. So we can experience, right now we can see, that it's benefiting me. And we can experience from other people's experience, devotees, that they're also happy. So there has to be some truth to this. It is spiritual suicide to take to the other paths. Yes. And Maya will pull us further. Yeah, wonderful realizations. Thank you very much for sharing those exceptional realizations. So therefore, let us stick to the supreme occupation, dharma for all humanity, is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service under the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. So we're on the right journey. Now it's about creating efficiency on this journey, unmotivated and uninterrupted. So pure devotional service is the ultimate good. It's the essence of all scriptures, and it's the goal of everyone's life. Every living entity is meant to come to this point. This is the goal. By rendering devotional service unto the personality of God at Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from this world. And those who are on this path, they will automatically get janayatyusa vairagyam. They will get detachment, and they will get ahutikam, knowledge that is causeless, knowledge that will come automatically. They will get this within their heart, how to practice, what to do. That knowledge about Krishna will come. So I'll give an example of how this knowledge will help us. You are on this road, and if you're on this road and you find let's say somebody is on this road, and they find a huge bag of money. So if they find a huge bag of money, how will people respond to that bag? How will you respond to that bag? How will those who are not on the path of devotional service respond to this bag? And depending on the path, their response will be appropriate or accordingly. So for example, a karmi, a materialist, as soon as he sees the bag of money, what is he going to do? Finders keep it, losers weep. So immediately he picks up the bag and takes the bag home. Right? He's going to take the money. A jnani who's an impersonalist, he'll see the money and he'll say, nope, it's not my money. I'm detached. Vairagyam. Or if he's a Mayavad impersonalist, he'll say, this is false. That bag is false, the road is false, everything is false. Aham brahmasmi. He'll leave the money. Right? He's not interested. So in this way, if he's a Buddhist, he'll think, oh, there's a bag of suffering. The materialist will see a bag of enjoyment. Right? So how will a devotee see? What will a devotee do? The devotee will take that bag and offer it to Krishna. So that is how the knowledge and detachment will help one understand how to see the world properly and how to act. Naturally, the materialist who's enjoying, who's taking, he's not detached. He doesn't have the knowledge and he's not detached. He's attached to enjoying. Whatever he sees, he wants to enjoy. So that is sinful. The impersonalists, they have the wrong understanding. They think about, talk about vairagya. We need to be renounced. You can only renounce that which is yours. Nothing in this world belongs to you. That money doesn't belong to you. That money is Lakshmi Devi. She doesn't belong to you. Therefore, you can't renounce something that doesn't belong to you. And if you're going to say, no, this belongs to someone. Okay, if it belongs to someone, why are you leaving it? Find out who it belongs to and give it to that person. Now, who does it belong to? Oh, I wonder who does it belong to? Nope. It's not someone in this material world. It belongs to the Supreme Lord. Therefore, offer that to the Supreme Lord. So you can see the devotee, by Prabhupada's mercy, by the Bhagavatam's mercy, has the most powerful knowledge and the ability to be detached in a spirit of devotion to offer everything to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then verse 8, the occupational activities a man performs according to his own position are only so much useless labor if they do not provoke attraction for the message of the personality of Godhead. So someone might say, okay, that's fine. I need to engage in devotional service, but I'm a plumber. I love water. I love plumbing. I love, doing some plumbing work. So I can, sit in the temple and chant Hare Krishna whole day, or engage in devotional service, or worship the deity. I'm a plumber, unfortunately. That's my occupation and I need to survive. No problem. Even while you're plumbing, see if your occupation is cultivating an attraction to the messages of Godhead. And if it is, then it is conducive. Otherwise, it is useless labor. All occupational engagements are certainly meant for ultimate liberation. They should never be performed for material gain. Furthermore, according to sages, one who is engaged in the ultimate occupation should never use material gain to cultivate sense gratification. So that's the if you have an illness, there's symptoms of an illness, fever, pain, etc. So spiritual disease, the fever, the measurement is sense gratification. The higher the sense gratification, the higher the disease. The more intense the disease. Life's desire should never be directed towards sense gratification. One should desire only a healthy life or self-preservation, since a human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth. Nothing else should be the goal of one's work. So it's a bold statement for us to completely embrace that no sense gratification, zero. What about no sense gratification? Prabhupada says spiritual life means even sex life should be zeroed. In the early days, when Prabhupada went to the West, Prabhupada was preaching to the hippies. And for the hippies, sex, rock and roll, LSD was life. And here Prabhupada is preaching to them and educating them. Spiritual life means zero sex life. So it's that shift in really understanding why, because sex life in the material world is the greatest form of sense gratification. And it is still a it is still an aspect that can bind. If one is not detached or regulated, then it can completely degrade one. So the challenges that we have is we're so conditioned. Now with that condition, we are learning the right aspiration. We are learning what is the right goals. We are learning what is the right vision. Therefore, knowing that and understanding our weaknesses and shortcomings, I should understand that I'm not right, I'm not on that level, which is okay, which is acceptable, which is no problem. In fact, we may think I'm so fallen. How can I traverse this path? But the path that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has chalked out for us, his mercy is there for the most fallen. Therefore, having faith in Lord Chaitanya, in the holy name of Krishna, we should continue as best as we can, taking shelter of the holy name and praying to Krishna. And in this way, continue this journey. And slowly as we continue on this journey, we will see these verses becoming alive. We will experience these verses in its true sense, in reality. So here it's described that Jivasya Tattva Jignasa. Human life is meant for inquiry into the absolute truth. Next verse, which is the verse we're starting today, is what is the absolute truth. And this verse is said to be is one of the Paribhasa Sutras of Srimad Bhagavatam. A Paribhasa Sutra is an emperor verse. It's a foundational verse. It's a verse in which the whole philosophy of Srimad Bhagavatam expands. So this is the first of two Paribhasa Sutras. We'll come to, also in the Canto 1, we'll come to that verse soon. But this verse is one of the foundational verses of Srimad Bhagavatam. Vedanti tat tattva vidas tattvam yaj gnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti sabhyate. Learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma, or Bhagavan. So the first line says Vedanti tat tattva vidas, the learned transcendentalists. That means we got those who are learned and those who are not learned. Now, those who are not learned, they would focus on one feature and consider that one feature to be all in all. Nothing else exists. If I'm an impersonalist, I will think Brahman, light is everything. And God cannot be a personalist. God cannot have a form. God is just light, full stop. Nothing beyond that. So that is one who's not learned, right? Ignorant of the absolute. He's got a feature of the absolute, but it's incomplete. And if he's stuck on that, unfortunately, that's an obstacle. A yogi may think the super soul is all in all. In the Lord in the heart. Lord is always in the heart. Like many people, they have this concept, right? God is in the heart. So I don't need to go to the temple. I don't need to do any prayers. God's in my heart. So in that way, they have a limitation. And even as devotees, if we consider Krishna as the form of the absolute and ignore the other features of the Lord, that is also incomplete and not learned. Here we are learning that the absolute truth, Advayam, you find in the verse, it says very clear that this absolute truth is Advayam, non-dual. It's not that there are three different personalities. No, there's one absolute truth appearing in three features. And the feature is of Brahman, the light coming from the Lord, and people can only see that light. They can't see any other feature. Then the localized feature of the Lord in every atom and in between every atom. And then the Lord as the supreme manifestation of personality. Prabhupada says the personality of Godhead. That is the absolute truth in these three features. So that person, he is Tattvavidas. He is learned. Prabhupada in the purport says The absolute truth is both subject and object. And there is no qualitative difference here. Therefore, Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan are qualitatively one and the same, because it is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The same substance is realized as impersonal Brahman by students of the Upanishads, as localized Paramatma by the Hiranyagarbhas or the yogis, and as Bhagavan by the devotees. In other words, Bhagavan, or the personality of Godhead, is the last word of the absolute truth. Paramatma is the partial representation of the personality of Godhead, and impersonal Brahman is the glowing effulgence of the personality of Godhead, as the rays of the sun are to the sun god. Less intelligent students of either of the above schools sometimes argue in favor of their own respective realization, but those who are perfect seers of the absolute truth know very well that the above three features of the one absolute truth are different perspective views seen from different angles of vision. So if we meet someone who is saying God is light, we should not argue with him because he's correct. But we should encourage him to evolve his understanding to a higher level, that he's right, you're correct. But actually, there's a higher feature of God, of the absolute. And that higher feature of the absolute is localized, Paramatma. And there's even a higher feature of the absolute, which is Bhagavan, which Prabhupada has given to this world, the supreme absolute truth. Now, I like to ask you a question. Here, Prabhupada is talking about, he starts off the purport. The absolute truth is both the subject and the object. So I'd like to ask you, you can type in the chat, what, okay, let's say it's an equation. The absolute truth equals. So don't give me Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. I want you to answer this equation. The absolute truth equals. Give me the answer. The absolute truth equals. Give me an answer. Spiritual mathematics. Absolute truth equals. What would you say? Any answers? Okay, Krishna. Madhachanasi says Krishna. Any others? 1 in 3. Good. Krishna, Kiridari, very good. The knower and the known. Yes. Lord Caitanya. Interesting. Yep, nice. Cause and effect. Good. Interesting. Krishna. Supreme Personality of Godhead. Very good. Okay, one more. Spiritual master. Now, I'm not going to go to the verse, right? But I'm going to ask you to refer to verse number 1. And you can do that, you can verify, go to the verse number 1. And in verse number 1, it's very clear. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya and Janmadhyasya Yaton. And Prabhupada starts off to say the absolute truth is, and Kalpana, I think you said it correctly. It's Sri Krishna, not Krishna. Okay, so those of you that have written Krishna, now you are fine-tuning. It's not Krishna. The absolute truth is not Krishna. That is like half the absolute truth. The absolute truth is complete, whole, Sri Krishna. And you can go and verify that in text 1. Many places Prabhupada says Sri Krishna. It's not Krishna, it's Radha Krishna. Krishna is the one who has power, not the power. The power, the potent and the potency is the absolute truth. Shakti and Shaktiman. Shakti is the energy, Shaktiman is the possessor. Krishna is the possessor of Shri energy, Shrimati Radhavani. So it's Radha Krishna, Hare Krishna, Shri Krishna is the absolute truth. And if you had to be in the Gaudiya line tradition, as Mother Hemavati says, Lord Chaitanya. So Lord Chaitanya is the right answer, because Lord Chaitanya is Radha and Krishna. Right? So just to emphasize, the absolute truth is not Krishna, Shri Krishna. Another example is, just like if you see a mountain, just like surrounding this place, Tirupati, property in the lecture is saying, there are so many hills. From the distant place, your vision is not clear. You simply see something like cloudy, the same mountain. But if you make a little further progress, you will see this, you will see the same mountain or hill greenish. And if you actually go on in the same hill, you will find there are so many animals, so many men, so many houses. So object is the same, but from different angle of vision, it appears differently. Similarly, unless one can understand Krishna perfectly, he realizes the absolute truth as impersonal, Niraka Brahman. Unless one understands Krishna perfectly well, he cannot understand what is Paramatma, which is realized by the yogic principles. But when you understand Krishna, then you understand Paramatma and Bhagavan also. This is the verdict of Shastra. Just like if you got 1 lakh of rupees, your possession of few thousands of rupees or few hundred rupees are already there. So Prabhupada is explaining the perspective of vision, that our vision, if our vision is different on the absolute truth, we will derive a different perspective of the absolute truth. So I like to give an example of the milk. So if I have milk here, and depending on which angle I see the milk, what senses I use to understand the milk, I will experience the milk differently. For example, if I just use my eyes, then I see some white substance with some brown things on top. If I use my ears, I can hear the glories of the milk, and somebody can say, this is fresh cow milk, this is almond milk, this is tasty milk. If I use my sense of touch, I can understand, yes, it's warm or it's cold. So depending on my sense, if I use my nose, I can smell this is fresh milk or it's rotten milk. If I use my tongue, I can relish the sublime taste of milk. So depending on the senses, I will experience the milk in a different way. The best way to experience milk, which it's designed for, is the tongue. So I need to use the tongue, and if I use my tongue, that is the best way to exchange to relate with milk and to derive the maximum benefit of the milk in terms of nourishing my finer brain tissues. So that is the proper way. The best way is using your tongue, not just hearing the milk or seeing the milk. Imagine somebody brings some milk to you, just see, okay, I saw, thank you very much, take it. No, that's not the best way. We want to drink the milk, right? Similarly, absolute truth. We can use different methods to experience the absolute truth. And depending on what method I use, I may experience the different features of the absolute truth. But the best feature, Prabhupada recommends and Bhagavatam recommends, devotional service, understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Prabhupada continues in the purport. There are 3 kinds of energies of the Supreme Energetic. There is no difference between the energy and the energetic, but there is a difference of the quality of energies. The absolute realm and the living entities are of the same superior energy, but the material world is inferior energy. The living being in contact with the inferior energy is illusion, thinking he belongs to inferior energy. Therefore, there is the sense of relativity in the material world. In the absolute, there is no such sense of difference between the knower and the known, and therefore everything there is absolute. This concept of absolute sometimes also difficult to grasp because we are in a relative world and our experience through and through from birth, life after life, is all of relativity. Therefore, when we are exposed to that which is absolute, it's inconceivable to the material consciousness or mind. The holy name is non-different from Krishna. The Bhagavatam is non-different from Krishna. The glories of Krishna is non-different from Krishna. Why? Because it's all absolute. And the more we contemplate on this, the more we will realize that we can never be separated from the absolute. Just by chanting the holy name, I'm in touch with Krishna, 100% directly. It's a question of just realizing that. In a lecture, Prabhupada says, so Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagwan iti sabhyate, step by step. But if you approach Krishna and you try to understand him through devotional service, then automatically you understand Brahman, Paramatma. There is no need of separate endeavor for understanding Brahman and Paramatma. Just by practicing Krishna consciousness as we are given by the disciplic succession, then automatically we understand the absolute truth, Sri Krishna, and we will also understand Brahman and Paramatma. It's automatic, it's included. You don't need to separately endeavor. Whereas otherwise, generally on the path of realizing the absolute truth, it can take billions of lifetimes to at least practice spiritual life, to come away from animal life to spiritual life. Or let's say, it takes millions of lives to go through animal life to come to human life. Then it takes millions and billions of lives to go through different human evolution to come to spiritual consciousness, spiritual life. Then you have to go through millions of lives of spirituality to come to understand the first feature of the absolute Brahman. Then it takes billions and trillions of lives to then realize Paramatma. And on that journey, there may be distractions and you may have to start again. You may fall down and you start the journey again. But when you automatically come to Krishna consciousness and you get the absolute truth, which is Sri Krishna, through devotional service, you have realized all other aspects of the journey automatically. Then text 12 says, Tachradadana munayo jnana vairagyam yuktaya pashyantyatmani chatmanam bhaktya shruta grihityaya. The seriously inquisitive student or sage, well equipped with knowledge and detachment, realizes the absolute truth by rendering devotional service in terms of what he has heard from the Vedanta Shruti. So now, Sutta Goswami is telling us or informing us of a quality that's required. That if we have this quality, tat shraddadana, faith, Prabhupada translated as serious inquisitiveness. You have to be inquisitive. You have to, want to know. You have to want to inquire. That faith, that this is what I need. This is what I want to learn. That faith is very, very important for a student. And if he's got that faith on the path of devotional service, that knowledge and detachment that he's going to get with that, what's going to happen? Pashyanti atmani. He will realize the absolute truth. It will be a reality through that devotional service. And how did he get to the process of devotional service? Bhaktya Shruta Grihitaya. That he got it through the Vedanta Sutra. So that point is very, very important. You need to have this faith, the inquisitiveness. You need to be equipped with that knowledge and detachment on the path of devotional service. Especially here, it's explaining Jnana Vairagya Yuktaya, the principle of Yukta Vairagya. Like that money, we would use it in Krishna's service. And then realizes the absolute truth by applying the knowledge and detachment in the process of devotional service, by rendering devotional service in terms of what he has heard from Vedanta Sutra. So the process of devotional service is not a concoction. It is not what you think, let me try practicing like this. No, it's based on the Vedanta Shruti. So Prabhupada in the purport says, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita and other Vedic literatures, The Supreme Person is realized by devotional service, which is backed by full knowledge and detachment of material association. We have already discussed the point that devotional service is followed by knowledge and detachment from material association. As Brahman and Paramatma realization are imperfect realization of the absolute truth, so the means of realizing Brahman and Paramatma, that is the path of jnana and yoga, are also imperfect means of realizing the absolute truth. Devotional service, which is based on the foreground of full knowledge combined with detachment from material association, which is fixed by oral reception of the Vedanta Shruti, is the only perfect method by which the seriously inquisitive student can realize the absolute truth. So we don't want to realize partial feature of the absolute truth. We want to realize the full feature. If you take to the path of impersonalism, you only get one feature. If you take to the path of impersonalism or speculation, you only realize Brahman. If you take to the yogic process, you only realize Paramatma. But we want to realize the absolute truth, complete as Bhagavan. Therefore, by approaching the Vedanta Shruti and understanding the process is devotional service, as Prabhupada says, based on full knowledge combined with detachment from material association. So any form of material association becomes a deterrent, becomes an obstacle, drags one down. Here we see the picture of Bivamangal Thakur. Bivamangal Thakur had one disease. His eyes always fell lustfully, initially on Chintamani, the prostitute. He was plagued by this lust that everyone in this material world is plagued by. And when Chintamani, the prostitute, it's a long history, gave him a reality shock that, the amount of attachment you have for me, the amount of endeavor you've placed to come see me, and during the storm and all the challenges he had to overcome, if you had to place just a fraction of that in the direction of the Supreme Lord, you would be successful. And this gave him a shock. And he said he decided to, go to Vrindavan, give up everything. On his way to Vrindavan, his eyes fell upon another female. And he became so disgusted. He went to that personality and asked her, can you please give me your hairpins? And she gave Bivamangal Thakur the hairpins, 2 hairpins. Bivamangal Thakur took their 2 hairpins, and he said, these eyes, they are stopping me from seeing the Lord. And he plucked his eyes out. Consider the determination. Consider the seriousness of his consciousness to get Krishna. That I want Krishna, and these eyes are stopping me from getting Krishna. Therefore, let me pluck my eyes out. Just to see the happens, is scary, right? You really need a extremely strong, fixed determination to pluck your eyes out for you to get Krishna. And he did that. And then he journeyed to Vrindavan. And sure enough, he met Krishna face to face. So, yes, technically that's what we need to do. We need to pluck our eyes out to see the Supreme Lord. That disease that's stopping us, this material association, sense enjoyment that's stopping us to see the absolute truth. But by the mercy of Lord Caitanya and Prabhupada, we have it a little easier, little more lenient. Okay, don't pluck your eyes out. Yukta, jnana vairagya yuktaya. Use your eyes to see the beautiful form of Krishna. Let your eyes gaze constantly on the beautiful features of the Lord, of the deity, of the Acha Vigraha, of the devotees. Right? So in this way, by using our eyes on anything that's Krishna related, then we can purify those diseased eyes instead of plucking them out. So we definitely have it easier. Hearing a must. Prabhupada continues. A sincere devotee must, therefore, be prepared to hear the Vedic literatures like the Upanishads, Vedanta, and other literatures left by the previous authorities or Goswamis for the benefit of his progress. So Prabhupada has left us a wealth of knowledge. And Prabhupada is making very clear, a sincere devotee should, optional, try. No, Prabhupada says a sincere devotee must. It's not an option. It's a necessity. It's a requirement. Why? Prabhupada says, without hearing such literatures, one cannot make actual progress. So that's the reason. If we don't sufficiently hear, and you're going to hear this point coming up and up again and again, if we do not hear sufficiently, we will not make progress. As we heard, we don't want to be dandavat devotees. We must hear. It's key for nurturing and watering our devotional kripa. And without hearing and following the instructions. So hearing is one thing. Then what comes? Following. So without the hearing and following the instructions, the show of devotional service becomes worthless and therefore a sort of disturbance in the path of devotional service. How does it become a disturbance? Somebody is a Dandava devotee, so he's doing service, and you'll see in the beginning he's very sincere. He's doing his service, and like you'll say, wow, this devotee is so attached to devotional service. Every day he's doing the service, 24 hours a day. He's not even hearing anything. But the challenge is that devotional service will not endure. He will start becoming attracted to sense enjoyment if he's not constantly hearing, purifying his consciousness, focusing his consciousness, understanding why he's doing what he's doing, or that service will become material. In the beginning, it's devotional, then it just becomes service, and then it becomes a botheration. And because you have to serve, you will find some alternative service. Therefore, we have to hear. Unless, therefore, devotional service is established on the principles of Shruti and Shmiti, Purana and Pancharatra authorities, the make sure devotional service should be at once be rejected. An unauthorized devotee should never be recognized as a pure devotee. By assimilation of such messages from the Vedic literatures, one can see the all-pervading localized aspect of the personality of Godhead within his own self constantly. This is called samadhi. So Krishna is there within the heart. He will be revealed according to our sincerity, according to our eagerness to hear. And because you'll see this emphasis again and again that we need to hear. Generally, it's explained that our attention span in Kali Yuga is like now, under 30 minutes. Right? Therefore, most people will just give a talk, 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 50, like that. But, we may go on for a few hours. Why? So that we start developing a taste to hear. Even few hours may be too short, but at least we can start exposing ourselves, hearing constantly. And once we develop a taste for hearing, that is the greatest benediction. Prabhupada in a lecture says, two things must go on. If, just like here, you'll find the Archa Vigraha, worshipping the deity, is going on. But if simply these things go on, because none of us are expert, there must be Shruta Grihitaya. We must hear about Krishna also. Two things must go on parallel lines. If simply speculation goes on, that will not help us. And if we simply ringing the bell goes on, then that is not. These are temples, many hundreds and thousands, but nobody goes because there is no Shruti. Shruti Grihitaya. People say, what is there? They simply ringing the bell, that's all. Two things must go on. Bhaktya, Shruta Grihitaya. You must hear the glories of Krishna and you must engage in the deity worship. So chanting and hearing the glories, engage in devotional service, these things must be there. Otherwise, it is incomplete. Faith and eagerness. Srila Prabhupada gives this beautiful description. I'm going to play this audio. Hopefully the audio will come through. You can just let me know in the chat if the audio is coming through. And this is a transcription of the audio. Prabhupada is talking about this faith and eagerness, and is giving us a wonderful pastime, a story in relation to this faith and eagerness.
Namang duskitinam mudha prapadante narana. They're sinful, rascals, fools, lowest of the mankind. They inquire like that. Can you show me God? What qualification you have acquired that you can see God? Here is the qualification. What is that? Sat-tat saddadhanam. Oh. One must be first of all faithful. Faithful. Saddadhana. He must be very much eager to see God, actually. Not that as a proclivity, frivolous thing. Can you show me God? A magic, just like God is a magic. No, he must be very serious. Yes, if there is God, we have seen, we have been informed about God. So, I must see. There is a story in this connection. It's very instructive. Try to hear. One professional reciter was reciting about Bhagavad, and he was describing that Krishna, being very highly decorated with all jewels, he is sent for tending the cows in the forest. So, there was a thief in that meeting. So he thought that why not then go to Vrindavan and plunder this boy. He's in the forest with so many valuable jewels. I can go there and catch the child and take all the jewels. That was his intention. So you are serious? I must find out that boy. Then in one night I shall become millionaire. So much jewelry. So he went there. But his qualification was that I must see Krishna. I must see Krishna. That anxiety, that eagerness made it possible that in Vrindavan he saw Krishna. He saw Krishna the same way as he was informed by the Bhagavad Gita. Then he said, oh, you are so nice, Krishna. So he began to flatter. He thought that flattering, I shall take all the jewels. So when he proposed his real business, so may I take some of these ornaments? He was so rich. No. My mother will be angry. I cannot. Krishna is a child. So he became more and more eager for Krishna. And then, by Krishna's association, he has already become purified. Then at last Krishna said, all right, you can take. And then he became a devotee immediately. Because by Krishna's association, somewhere or other, we should come in contact with Krishna. Somewhere or other. Then he will be purified.
Yeah, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So somehow or other come in contact with Krishna, have that eagerness, and when we with Krishna, with that eagerness, that faith, we will be purified, like this thief. So life is meant for seeing Krishna. In another lecture Prabhupada says, so this eagerness is a very important thing, but it can be awakened by the association of devotees. Therefore, we are giving chance to everyone to invoke that eagerness. Then you will see God eye to eye. It is not difficult. Tat Shradana munayo. Those who have developed that eagerness, faith, that I must see Krishna in this life. This life is meant for seeing Krishna. It is not meant for becoming dogs and hogs. Unfortunately, the whole civilization is going on. They have been trained to become dogs and hogs. It is the only institution that is teaching people how to see Krishna. This is the only institution, this Krishna conscious movement. It is so important. Then text 13. Ata pumbir dvija shrestha varnashrama vibhagasha swanustitasya dharmasya samsidir haritoshanam. O best among twice born, it is therefore concluded that the highest perfection one can achieve by discharging the duties prescribed for one's own occupation according to the caste divisions and orders of life is to please the personality of Godhead. So now Sutta Goswami is concluding that the conclusion is that the highest thing you can do to achieve perfection is to please the personality of Godhead through your occupation, through whatever situation you're in. Sam Siddhir Haritoshanam. This is the perfection of one's varna, ashram, occupation, and position. Pleasing Krishna. So Prabhupada starts off the purport and says, human society all over the world, or except from the purport, human society all over the world is divided into 4 castes and 4 orders of life. The 4 castes are the intelligent class, the martial caste, the productive caste, and the laborer caste. These castes are classified in terms of one's work and qualification, not by birth. Then again, there are the 4 orders of life, namely the student life, the householder's life, the retired and devotional life. In the best interest of human society, there must be such division of life. Otherwise, no social institution can grow in a healthy state. And in each and every one of the above mentioned divisions of life, the aim must be to please the supreme personal authority of the personality of Godhead. And Prabhupada puts that in italics. This institutional function of human society is known as the system of Varnashram Dharma, which is quite natural for civilized life. The Varnashram institution is constructed to enable one to realize the absolute truth. It is not for artificial domination of one division over another. When the aim of life, that is, realization of the absolute truth, is missed by too much attachment for indriya priti or sense gratification, as already discussed before, the institution of Varnashram is utilized by selfish men to pose an artificial predominance over the weaker section. In Kali Yuga, or in the age of quarrel, this artificial predominance is already current. But the saner section of people know it well, that the division of castes and orders of life are meant for smooth social intercourse and higher thinking self-realization, and not for any other purpose. Here in the statement of Bhagavatam is that the highest aim of life, or the highest perfection of the institution of Varnashram Dharma, is to cooperate jointly for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. So this division, which includes the 4 Varnas and 4 ashrams, 4 social and spiritual orders, incorporation is ultimately meant so that we can cooperate with the focus of satisfying the Supreme Lord. This is the objective. This is the focus. In a lecture, Prabhupada says, if Krishna says, all right, then everything is right. Bas. If you simply satisfy Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then you satisfy all others. Tasmin tushto jagat tushta. Just like you know the story in the Mahabharata. And the story in Mahabharata that Prabhupada is referring to here is when the Pandavas were in exile. Duryodhan, he invited Durvasa Muni with his thousands of disciples. And he fed the disciples and Durvasa Muni very nicely, pleased them. And then he asked, Durvasa Muni was very happy and said, if there's any service he can render, and he said, yes, please, go and bless my brothers, the Pandavas. Naturally, he knew that the Pandavas, if they had to receive Durvasa Muni and his thousands and thousands of disciples, they would not be able to honor them nicely. And therefore, Durvasa Muni will be upset, get angry, curse them. So this was his intention. So he said, please go. So Durvasa Muni and his disciples said, yes, we'll go. So they came to the Pandavas in the forest, and they were received very nicely. And Yudhishthira Maharaj said, thank you for coming, gracing, blessing us. And please go take your bath, and we will prepare a meal. But they knew they were in great anxiety. Draupadi was in extreme great anxiety because they just had eaten. It was just after lunch. The Pandavas had eaten. They had taken their lunch. Draupadi also had eaten. And Draupadi had a pot, this pot, mystical pot that was given to her by Suryadev, an Akshaya Tirtha pot. There was this pastime took place yesterday, Thursday. And the benefit of this, the pot was that as long as Draupadi didn't eat, it could produce unlimited quantity of supply. So she had eaten, and now there was nothing to cook for the sages. So they were in great anxiety. And that anxiety, when devotees are in anxiety, they call upon Krishna. So all Pandavas were praying to Krishna, Draupadi was praying to Krishna, and Krishna sure enough appeared. And Krishna said, I'm very hungry. Please, can you feed me? And Draupadi said, unfortunately, we have just eaten. We don't have anything left. And Krishna said, no, there must be, please see. So they brought the pot, and there was some grain left. Krishna took the grain, ate it, and was completely satisfied. In the meantime, the sages, Durvasa Muni and the thousands of disciples were bathing in the Ganges. And when Krishna ate and was satisfied, you're probably saying, Tasmin tushto jagat tushta. If Krishna is satisfied, everyone that's connected to Krishna becomes satisfied. So the sages, Durvasa Muni, they were bathing, and immediately they felt their belly becoming so filled. They started belching, and they were looking at each other and thinking, nope, this is not going to be good. We already filled to the brim. If we now go and we won't able to eat what Yudhishthira gives us, is going to be very embarrassing. We don't want to, be embarrassed. And in fact, Durvasa Muni, he had this realization because he had offended Ambarish Maharaj, who was a great devotee, and he learned his lesson. We'll come to that pastime. And he decided, I don't want to offend a devotee this time, so let's just leave. So immediately they left, and they were protected. So if we simply try to focus on pleasing Krishna, everything will be wonderful. Prabhupada says, so the process is this actually. If you can satisfy Krishna, if Krishna says, all right, then everything is all right. This is Krishna conscious movement. Some or other, you satisfy Krishna, some siddhi hari toshanam. Then you have all perfection. Very simple method. You try to satisfy Krishna, and you're everything satisfied. Everything's perfect. So this should be our objective. How to satisfy Hari, Guru, Vaishnava, Bhagavata Gita. Try to satisfy these transcendental personalities. Swanashtitasya dharmasya. Everyone has got a specific duty. So one has to see that by specific duty, entrusted with or discharging that duty, whether Krishna is being satisfied. That's all. Therefore, one has to accept a bona fide spiritual master to know whether Krishna is being satisfied by his work. Who will certify? You cannot concoct, I'm doing for satisfaction of Krishna. No, that is not possible. It must be accepted by the representative of Krishna. Yes, by your work, Krishna is satisfied. Then it is all right. So very important point. Yes, we want to satisfy Krishna, but who's going to certify? Who's going to verify that Krishna is pleased? Because by your own concoction, you would think I'm doing something and Krishna is satisfied, but somebody needs to verify. Therefore, we follow Prabhupada's instructions. We follow Bhagavad Gita. When we follow those instructions, we know Krishna is satisfied because it's coming by Krishna. It's coming through the coming by the representative, the pure devotee, the spiritual master who's connected to Krishna cent%, he can certify that Krishna is happy. Then this principle of satisfying Krishna, using everything to satisfy Krishna. So it is, Prabhupada says, it is a very scientific system, but they are killing. In India, it was there, and still rascal leaders, they are trying to kill it. Classless society. How you can make classless society? There are dogs, cats. How you can make classless society? It can be made in Krishna consciousness. Because when you accept Krishna as a supreme master, the supreme proprietor, Bhoktaram Yagyatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, then you become classless. Just like in this body, there is a brain. Brain is very important. Leg is not so important. But it is important because if the legs does not help you to move, simply brain, how it will help? So there is cooperation. Although the brain is most important part of the body, still the leg is required, hand is required, the belly is also required, everything is required. We do not avoid anything. We do not say stop this. No, everything is required. Just like we have discovered this microphone, yes, it is required. We are taking advantage of it and speaking nicely about Krishna. So our point is not to disregard anything, but everything used for the satisfaction of Krishna. That is called samsiddhir haritoshanam, means satisfying Krishna. So our principle is use everything, just like we're using modern technology in the service of Krishna. Srila Bhaktisindra Maharaj used this vehicle to go to Radhakund. Imagine, at that time, this whole caste consciousness was there. And people, they were like rejecting materialism, rejecting anything material. And Srila Bhaktisindra Maharaj comes to Radhakund in a vehicle like this. Prabhupada used the plane to travel worldwide, used technology in so many ways. Prabhupada engaged everything. This was the principle of Yukta Vairagya, using everything in the service of Krishna for the pleasure of Krishna. And then in another lecture, Prabhupada says, continued, you have manufactured, you have discovered something, but you will get perfection by manufacturing this. Anything you do, if you can satisfy Krishna by your art and intelligence and education, by your work, then your life is perfect. So that's a very important instruction. Whatever ability you have, whatever skill you have, whatever education you have, whatever intelligence you have, whatever work you like, do that for the pleasure of Krishna. Then your life is perfect. We don't decry, don't do this, do everything, but do it for Krishna. That is perfect. Otherwise, go to hell. Shrava eva hi kevalam. Oh, I'm a Brahmana, I'm doing my duty. But do you know Krishna? Do you serve Krishna? Yes, I know Krishna, I am Krishna. This will not help you. Suppose a big man, a president, if you say, I am president, what the government will think of you? He's crazy fellow. Similarly, these rascals, when they say, I'm God, then we take it. That is a rascal fellow. So use everything in the service of Krishna, and that will allow you to become perfect for his pleasure. Text 14. Tasmad ekena manasa bhagavan sattvatam pati shrotavya kirtitavyascha dheya pujas chanityadam. Therefore, with one pointed attention, one should constantly hear about, glorify, remember, and worship the personality of Godhead, who is the protector of devotees. So now the concluding verses, Sutta Goswami is now concluding this section, and he's now giving the ultimate conclusion. What should we do? Tasmat ekana manasa, one-pointedness, with one-pointed focus. What we should do? Bhagavan sattvatam pati, in relation to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, sattvatam pati, the protector of the devotees. In relation to him, Bhagavan, shrotavya kirtitavyasya tavyascha. We should hear about, glorify, and remember. And how much? Jena pujaschcha nityada, constantly, nitya, constantly. So this is the conclusion. This is what we should be doing. And Prabhupada talks about the real object of glorification in the purport. Prabhupada writes, if realization of the absolute is the ultimate aim of life, it must be carried out by all means. In any one of the above mentioned castes or orders of life, the four processes, namely glorification, glorifying, hearing, remembering, and worshipping, are the general occupations. Without these principles of life, no one can exist. Activities of the living being involve engagement in these four different principles of life. So Prabhupada is using these four principles that's mentioned in this verse in a general sense, that if you take any civilization, we are glorifying people, right? On the media, television, movies, people are glorified. We're hearing about things. We're hearing about people. We're hearing about events. We are remembering, and we're worshiping people. So it's a general occupation. But if we want to perfect this occupation, it has to be directed towards Krishna. Especially in modern society, all activities are more or less dependent on hearing and glorifying. Any man from any social status becomes a well-known man in human society within a very short time if he simply glorified, if he is simply glorified, truly or falsely, in a daily newspapers. Sometimes political leaders of a particular party are also advertised by newspaper propaganda, and by such a method of glorification, an insignificant man becomes an important man within no time. But such propaganda by false glorification of an unqualified person cannot bring about any good, either for the particular man or for the society. There may be some temporary reaction to such propaganda, but there are no permanent effects. Therefore, such activities are a waste of time. The actual object of glorification is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who has created everything manifested before us. We have broadly discussed this fact from the beginning of Janmadhyasya, sloka of the Bhagavatam. The tendency of to glorify others or hear others must be turned into the real object of glorification, the Supreme Being, and that will bring happiness. Wonderful point. Prabhupada's so expert. You're doing it. You are glorifying, you are hearing, you are remembering, you are worshiping, you're doing it anyway. But what you're doing currently is a waste of time. If you just direct it to the right object, Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, then perfection. So hear about, glorify, remember, and worship Krishna. Don't change the activity, change the object of that activity, the focal point. So hearing and repeating. In one lecture, Prabhupada says, therefore, we have established back to Godhead. The students are allowed, whatever they are hearing, they must be thoughtful and right. Kirtitavyascha. So in this verse, it's saying Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha. So Prabhupada is emphasizing on Kirtitavyascha. Not only simply hearing, not only Shrotavya, but also Kirtitavyascha. Oh, I am hearing for millions of years, still I cannot understand. Because you do not chant, you do not repeat what you have heard. You have to repeat. Kirtitavyascha. Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha Dhyaya. And how you can write or how you can speak unless you think of him. You are hearing about Krishna, you have to think. Then you can speak, otherwise not. So, Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha. So, point is we need to hear and we need to speak. We need to hear and we need to repeat. That way, our understanding will be measured. We can understand only if we repeat. So it's a good practice to hear about Krishna consciousness and share Krishna consciousness. Right? We want to hear and we want to encourage others to hear. So practically, just like we may hear the Bhagavatam, and you could immediately phone your friend tomorrow because you're going to have to speak about something to someone. So might as well pick up the phone and speak to a friend and share what you have heard in the Bhagavatam, what you have read in the Bhagavatam, right? According to your realization, according to what you can recollect, according to the points that stimulated you, that really, got deep within your consciousness and heart, and you share on that. Now, when you start sharing that, that becomes solidified in your consciousness. right? You will start getting other realizations on that point, on those points. And this is how our spiritual life begins to build more and more on a solid foundation. So both, don't just hear, but hear and repeat, right? In this way, it becomes more and more beneficial. So it's a very good practice. At the same time, we know that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in this picture we see he's the main trunk, he's the root, he's the trunk, and he's expanding, as the branches according to his associates. He's also the gardener who's watering this tree of Krishna consciousness, of bhakti, of pure devotional service, of the bhakti that is exemplified in Vrindavan. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's lamenting, that this tree is going to bear fruits. And we see there's all fruits there that people are plucking on, right? But Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is lamenting that I'm only one person, I'm only one gardener. How can I distribute all these fruits of love of God? I need help. So we can help Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by spreading the glories, by hearing the glories and spreading the glories. And this is how we can serve Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So not only is it beneficial for us, it's actually an intimate service to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to help others connect to this knowledge of Krishna consciousness, to connect to this knowledge of Bhagavatam. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was preaching the Bhagavatam. This is the philosophy. This is the knowledge. This is the knowledge that's going to help people in this world. So therefore, giving people this and exposing people to this knowledge is extremely beneficial for us, but it's personal service to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now somebody might say, but I'm not a preacher. I can't preach. Okay, no problem. You can't preach, then fine. You can, like this devotee, he's illustrating the Back to Godhead magazine to people, showing them pictures, telling them a little about the picture. So that's how he's connecting people. So like that, we can also connect people by giving them Srila Prabhupada's books. Right? We don't need to be expert in preaching. I give my own example as well. I never read a novel in my life. I hated English. I hated Afrikaans. I never spoke to people. But when I came in contact with Krishna consciousness, by Prabhupada's books, my English improved. I started speaking to people. So the potency is there in the process. We simply have to be sincere, faithful, apply it, and practice it. And then Krishna will use us in whichever way Krishna feels fit to help distribute the fruits of love of God. So it's very important. We can refer to people on the recording, to the YouTube channel. Oh, I heard this beautiful thing, please go listen. So in this way, this is how we can direct people. We don't need to be expert in every facet, in every field, but to hear and to repeat. Prabhupada in another lecture says, you are hearing about God. Now you have to spread it. Kirtita Vyascha. Not that, oh, I have known God. That's all right. Let me be satisfied. No, you must preach. That is another business. Because people are ignorant. They do not know what God is. They are manufacturing God. They're accepting some rascal as God. So what is real God? You must preach. Shrotavya kirtitavyascha deheya. And you should always think about God. Then you will get intelligence. So preaching, hearing, always thinking of and worshiping. These 4 things are required. Then everything will be all right. It is not official business that after 1 week you go and God gives us our daily bread. God give us our daily bread and go home. No. So your Prabhupada is talking about like people go once a week to the Sunday program. If you go once a week to the Sunday program, you're not going to be self-realized. You're not going to get pure devotional service. Right? Because just going once a week to the Sunday program is not Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness means daily. And Prabhupada's going on, he says, no, nityada, 24 hours, we should be business, engage in this business. Right? So we should try to cultivate, we should try to come to this level. 24 hours a day, I am hearing, glorifying, remembering, and worshiping Krishna. Now someone may say, oh, but how can I remember Krishna 24 hours a day, especially when I'm sleeping? It's not possible. But even when you're sleeping, it's possible. Because when you conscious and when you're wakeful and you are fully absorbed during your wakeful state, remembering the Lord, engaging in Krishna consciousness, then when you're sleeping, your thoughts will filter through. And you'll also start thinking in your dreams, you'll start thinking in relation to Krishna consciousness. You'll be preaching, doing things Krishna related. So that way, 24 hours a day, we can remember Krishna. And then concluding verse for today's section, Yad anudyasina yukta karma granti nirbandhana chindanti kovidastasya kona kuryat katam kataratim. With sword in hand, intelligent men cut through the binding knots of reactionary work karma by remembering the personality of Godhead. Therefore, who will not pay attention to his message? Prabhupada starts off the purport in terms of becoming free. The contact of the spiritual spark with material elements creates a knot which must be cut if one wants to be liberated from the actions and reactions of fruit of work. Liberation means freedom from the cycle of reactionary work. This liberation automatically follows for one who constantly remembers the transcendental pastimes of the personality of Godhead. This is because all the activities of the Supreme Lord, his leelas, are transcendental to the mode of material energy. They are all attractive spiritual activities, and therefore constant association with the spiritual activities of the Supreme Lord gradually spiritualizes the conditioned soul and ultimately severs the knot of material bondage. So the way to cut all the reactionary work, we've been in this material existence for billions and trillions of lifetimes, and we've accumulated so much reactionary work, karma. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So everything you are seeing, coming in contact with, thinking, hearing, all the senses are getting exposed to different reactionary work. And therefore we have accumulated mountains and mountains of karma. And as long as the mountains of karma is there, means a new birth is waiting. In order to destroy that mountain of karma, we simply have to hear the glories of Krishna. If we hear Krishna consciousness, we hear the glories of Krishna, it burns away, it cuts this knot of karma, meaning it burns all our karma. So this is the benefit of hearing and practicing Krishna consciousness, that it's now burning all your past karma, and because it is transcendental above the modes, you're not getting any further karma. Which means if you sincerely keep going on this path, sooner or later you're going to have nothing to burn and you have no future karma. And that is the point of liberation. But we're going beyond liberation. So beyond liberation, Prabhupada says in the purport, liberation from material bondage is therefore a byproduct of devotional service. Attainment of spiritual knowledge is not sufficient to ensure liberation. Such knowledge must be overcoated with devotional service so that ultimately the devotional service alone predominates. Then liberation is made possible. Even the reactionary work of fruit of workers can lead one to liberation when it is overcoated with devotional service. Karma overcoated with devotional service is called karma yoga. Similar empiric knowledge overcoated with devotional service is called jnana yoga. But pure bhakti yoga is independent of such karma and jnana because it alone can not only endow one with liberation from conditioned life, but also award one transcendental loving service of the Lord. So very wonderful. Prabhupada is making the point that yes, no matter what situation, if you have bhakti yoga, devotional service, it's beneficial, but ultimately we want to strive for pure devotional service. So here we have a prisoner in prison, he's in prison life. That is material bondage. That's where all the living entities are in this material world. And by practicing Krishna consciousness, we slowly become liberated. Liberated means we're now coming out of the prison and we're in the doorway of the prison. In the doorway of the prison means I have no karma. My karma is completely burnt. Right? But I'm still in the doorway. That's liberation. And that's mukti. I'm not in prison life, and neither I'm in spiritual devotional life. But when I go further out of the door into real devotional life, the spiritual world, now that is beyond liberation. That is perfection. That is pure devotional service. Now, the beauty is I can practice that activity which is beyond this prison, which is pure devotional service, even while in this material prison, having the proper consciousness, ahituki apratihata, uninterrupted, unmotivated devotional service. And yes, I may practice for 5 minutes with no motive and no interruption for the 5 minutes. That will help me to purify and progress. Right? So there's no waste, there's no loss or diminution on that path of pure devotional service. It'll increase and increase until I'm practically, my whole existence, my life is healthy now. I've now regained spiritual health, and that means only engaging in pure devotional service, which is beyond liberation. So constantly hear about Krishna. Therefore, any sensible man who is above the average man with a poor fund of knowledge must constantly remember the personality of God by hearing about him, by glorifying him, by remembering him, and by worshiping him always. And this is also Krishna's instructions. Become my devotee, worship me, glorify me. That is, and always without cessation. That is perfectional way of devotional service. The Goswamis of Vrindavan, who were authorized by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to preach the bhakti cult, rigidly followed this rule and made immense literatures of transcendental science for our benefit. They have chalked out ways for all classes of men in terms of different castes and orders of life in pursuance of the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam and similar other authoritative scriptures. So we are so blessed that the Goswamis, Srila Prabhupada, the previous acharyas have given us so much direction, so much wisdom, so much knowledge, so much guidance. The blueprint for spiritual life is all laid out. It's inconceivable. The amount of knowledge that we have been given is unreal. It's unimaginable. Now it's only upon us that we understand what we've been given, we appreciate and are grateful, and we fully accept and embrace this knowledge that is given for our benefit. The Goswamis did not give this knowledge and sell. They didn't make a business out of it. Srila Prabhupada didn't, spread Krishna consciousness and make a business out of it. No, he gave it for the benefit of all living entities. And in that mood, they simply distributed this knowledge for the benefit of people so that they could, everyone, doesn't matter what your position is, whether you're a student, whether you're married, whether you renounce, it doesn't matter what your occupation is, everyone, like this family, is coming together and glorifying Krishna. And from small, they're cultivating this in the children. This is the gift of the acharyas, gift of the Goswamis, gift of Lord Caitanya, gift of Srila Prabhupada. And we should take this message further in our own life and helping others perfect their life. So becoming perfect. So this is called intelligence. And cats and dogs, they are suffering. They don't mind. They forget. You have got experience. A cat is coming to eat some milk here. You chastise. You chastise. But again, it comes. Again, it comes because it is animal. And the difference between an animal and man is, suppose there is very palatable dish. So man, unless he's offered, although he is greedy, although he's hankering after that food, but he's awaiting the invitation. Yes, you can take. But cats and dogs, without invitation, catches. That is the difference between man and animal. Animal cannot control. Man can control. Although he's hungry, he can control out of civility. How can I taste without invitation? So that is difference. Therefore, the conclusion is man's life is meant for control, not like animal. I want to eat, immediately catch it. Catch a cat or dog or cow or a bull, rape. As soon as there is female, immediately rape. So here Prabhupada is using the word rape in the form of sex, right? As soon as they see, they want to have sex. So there is no punishment. But if you do not, if you do that on the street, raping, immediately you will be criminal. So there's a difference. The inclination is there, both in animal and both in human being. But a human being is supposed to be controlled. That is human life. The more you control, the more you become perfect. And though the more you become loose, you are animal. That is the difference. So that is the Bhagavatam's message, that we have to hear the glories of Krishna. That will allow us to gain more control of our senses. Otherwise, like this picture is showing, our senses are all over the show. Each sense is taking us to different objects of the senses. And in this way, we're getting pulled left, right, and center, distracted, totally destroyed. We have to control senses, direct the senses, especially the hearing, to the glories of Krishna. Anything that is not connected to Krishna, we have to try to control ourselves to move away from that object of sense, object of the senses. And in this way, by directing our attention to Krishna, to the glories of Krishna, specifically through hearing Krishna consciousness, this will benefit us, mold our life, burn our karma, purify us, absorb us, and in this way, bring us to a healthy state of spiritual life. And summary, Prabhupada is going to give us the real thing is bhakti, which is the essence of all scriptures, the ultimate good. It gives full satisfaction, simply to please Radha and Krishna. And bhakti, the essence of bhakti means we hear, chant, and worship Krishna. And in this beautiful excerpt, one of my most favorite excerpts, Prabhupada sharing what is real bhakti, what is pure devotional service. Please hear with attention.
There is a Munshidas Babaji Maharaj. He was talking with his deity. Krishna, just like Madan Mohan. He was talking with Sanatana Goswami. Madan Mohan, Sanatana Goswami at that time had no temple. He was hanging his deity on the tree. So Madan Mohan was talking with him, Sanatana, you are bringing all these dry chapatis and it is stale. And you don't give me even little salt. How can I eat? And Sanatana Goswami says, sir, where shall I go? Whatever I get, I offer you. You kindly accept. I cannot move, old man. So Krishna had to eat that. Because the bhakta is offering, he cannot refuse. Jimang bhaktya prajit. Real thing is bhakti. What you can offer to Krishna, everything belongs to Krishna. What you have got, what is your value? And what is the value of your things? It is nothing. Therefore, the real thing is bhaktya. Real thing is your feeling. Krishna, kindly take it. I have no qualification. I am most rotten fallen. But I have brought this thing for you. Please say. This will be accepted. Don't be puffed up. Always be careful. You are dealing with Krishna. That is my request. Thank you very much.
Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So the question in conclusion is, what is your service absorption? What are you focusing. Where is your ability? Where is your talent? What do you like to become a master at as best as you can? So that becomes your absorption. That becomes your focus. Day and night, you meditate on that service. You contemplate on that service. You try to become a master at that service in the best in the best possible way to offer that to Sri Krishna. We should all have our focus, our service, our absorption. Just like we have a material occupation, we should have our devotional occupation, our devotional service. Yes, we like to do all services, but we should also have that service that we can practically do day and night without getting paid, without any motive. I just love to do that service. That should be our absorption, and that service will give us the edge, the leverage to continue and become completely purified. And through that service, we will be always protected. And that service will become the shelter. That service, when we're in difficulty, when we're challenged, that service will give us that shield, that protection, that comfort. Because there will be difficult times. You are in the ocean of material existence. You're going to go through suffering. If you are not absorbing Krishna consciousness, you will suffer. Everybody has to experience pain. Pain is compulsory, but suffering is optional. The suffering is optional because if we surrender in absorption of service to Krishna, then we will have a different perspective to life. Our knowledge will be different. Our detachment to the environment will be different. Or our experience will be different. It will be Krishnatized, it will be Krishna related. Therefore, with determination, we should always engage in devotional service, maintaining that determination, increasing our determination with faith. We should continue, and in this way, build, become stronger, become the inspiration for others, which through our own example, we will be able to preach and help and encourage and inspire others on this path of pure devotional service, which every living entity is seeking. So thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Next week, we're going to be covering the 14 stages of bhakti from verses 16 to 21. All right, so are there any questions or comments anyone has? You're most welcome to unmute, share your video if you want, or type in the chat. Or any feedback. Only a pleasure, Tanuja, to share. As the Bhagavatam is saying, to hear and then to share, right? So that's one way for me to become purified, is to hear and then to share in this way. And this is one way that forces me to be able to share what I'm hearing and trying to share it with few souls. So even if I can benefit one soul, then that is the success. Mother Lash says, Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you for this very interactive Q&A, Krishna Katha. I really enjoyed today's class in this format. Yes, so that's the other thing, right? If you feel that, because generally I'm doing this also so that it's recording and it's recorded on YouTube. Ideally, the Q&A is also very, very important. And, in a classroom setting, I ask a lot of questions to keep people interactive. Sometimes on the Zoom session, I ask a question, it takes like 3, 4, 5 minutes before somebody responds. So that's also a difficulty or challenge. I'm wondering, like, did they hear the question or didn't they hear it? Or did they, hear the audio, didn't they hear it? It becomes a little difficult. Whereas in a classroom setting, you can see somebody responding. In fact, in some classes, it's compulsory. In some sessions on YouTube, on Zoom, it's compulsory for everyone to share video, to switch on the video. Now it's good to share your video because why? It's good to have that personal connection. If I see everyone, I become inspired. You see me, because so it's nice to see everyone. Some people are a little shy, etc. But in a classroom, you seeing anyone anywhere, right? So that way also the interaction is there. But when they have their online classes, they see everyone's face. So then they know if on your phone, if you're sleeping, the teacher will also be able to focus, get you absorbed. But yes, the interaction I think is nice for devotees to share, and also we learn from others' realization. So definitely, I'll keep that format to. And depending on the subject matter. Sharad Prabhu says, Sharad says, Hare Krishna, thank you for the wonderful, inspirational and instructive class. Thank you. Srila Prabhupada said, life is meant for seeing Krishna. Is it okay to desire to see Krishna when and if he allows, or is this motivated? So if we see, very often Prabhupada makes this point that yes, this is what Krishna consciousness is about, seeing Krishna. So that desire to see Krishna is not wrong. That desire to see Krishna is devotional service. It is conducive to the process of bhakti. The question is, when you see Krishna, what next? Krishna, can you please arrange that I get the latest iPhone? So the question is, what you're going to ask Krishna? Krishna, can you make me the president of South Africa? Right. You may not ask that, but that's the point, right? What is your request? Or, my Lord, I'm so blessed to see your darshan. Please give me some service. And in the Maha Mantra, Prabhupada said the meaning of the mantra is, oh Lord, oh angel Lord, please engage me in your service. The meaning is not, oh Lord, oh angel Lord, please allow me to see you, which is beneficial and conducive. But Prabhupada says, please engage me in your service. Why? If Krishna engages you in his service, automatically seeing Krishna is there. You can't engage in someone's service without seeing. So the beauty of service is all other desires are included. You will see Krishna. You'll be able to associate with Krishna. You will hear his glories by the other devotees. Everything is included just through the fact of desiring for service. So yes, asking for service, seeing Krishna, glorifying Krishna is all included. So it's a conducive desire. In fact, we want to desire. We don't want to chant without any intimacy. I want Krishna to appear. I want Krishna to purify my life so that I can be with him 100%. Just like this picture behind me. This picture behind me is Sudama and Krishna. Krishna is holding Sudama's hand and going into the forest. This is what we want. We want that intimacy. And that intimacy can come only if we desire it. Without desire, greed, not just desire, lobbyum, intense greed. I want it. So right now we are hearing about the absolute truth. We are refining our knowledge of what is the absolute truth. What is the process? As the Bhagavatam unfolds, this will unfold greater and greater and more, right? In terms of what we need, what we need to do. It'll come step by step. So Mother Nav Kishori says, yes, I do share YouTube, my devotee friends. And Vanan, thank you. Yes, so thank you very much for, that is why it's also one way to contact people. For example, on YouTube, there's also an algorithm that YouTube runs. People, it's like if you go after this, I'll do the recording, I'll upload it. If you go and like it, you put a post, that's get recorded by the algorithm. And then people that are searching, somebody searching who is God, right? So I'll be also posting Mother Hemavati's beautiful poems as the initial message on the different videos. So that way, if somebody writes a certain, or they're searching for something and it's in there, and according to the algorithm, it can obviously come up. And in that way, people can get connected, right? So any way we can touch people's lives through the process of Krishna consciousness, this is the greatest gift that we could the greatest welfare activity that we could perform for anyone in this creation. So a very important activity, share with friends and family. You don't know who is waiting, who's ready, who's actually waiting to be connected. And you may be that guide to connect that person, that soul to Krishna. And once you're on the path on this beautiful path, there is no turning back, because it's real, it's factual, and it's what the soul is looking for. Hare Krishna Prabhu, the Sudevi is asking, please elaborate on unmotivated devotional service. So next week we're going to be covering the stages of bhakti. We'll also be covering some of these aspects, and we can cover a whole subject on the different types of devotional service. So in the third canto also we'll be covering that subject. There are devotional services that can be practiced according to the modes of material nature. Different varieties, over 81 different varieties of devotional service according to our mode. So for example, I can chant Hare Krishna. So chanting is a devotional practice, but I can chant in the mode of ignorance. That means I can chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Sleeping. That's chanting in the mode of ignorance. Or I can chant in the mode of passion. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Prabhu, how can I help you? Yes. No, I'm just chanting my rounds. Hare Krishna. Okay. Or I can, start going online. I can see some movie online. That's chanting in the mode of passion. Okay. Or Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, that's mode of passion, just to finish the rounds. Or I can chant in the mode of goodness, which is a better mode to be in terms of chanting. I need a nice environment, etc. So we want to rise above the modes in devotional practice and come to chanting in the mode of pure goodness, simply for the pleasure of Krishna. In the mode of goodness, I'm trying to complete my rounds, sincerely, attentively, nicely. But in the mode of pure goodness, I'm simply chanting for the pleasure of Guru and Krishna. So there are different levels like that. So unmotivated means no tinge of ignorance, no tinge of wanting something, no tinge for fame or adoration, right? Simply to please Krishna, unmotivated. So Haritoshanam, for Krishna's pleasure. The next question, the verses were studied, gave me an overview. I'm looking forward to go into the nitty-gritty piece by piece, bringing the overall. Yes, the more you read, the more you study, the more it unfolds and the more clarity one gains. Who are the unauthorized devotees in text 12? So there are many in India. There are people that have, it's like the half-hand philosophy. You take one part, the half-hand philosophy is that there's this hand that lays a golden egg, and the farmer is thinking, wow, this is, I feed the hen and I get a golden egg. The feeding is, it's costing and it's like tedious, but the golden egg is wonderful. So I think what we should do is cut the hen in half. We'll get the golden egg part only, and we won't worry about the feeding. Okay, so that's, unauthorized people. They take parts and pieces of the Vedas. They may bundle it according to their now half understanding or concocted understanding, and they present it. And you find there are many like that in India. All around the world, people, even in the material sphere, how many people who are out there in the material sphere, right, who are, coaching, who are giving seminars, right, about subjects that they have absolutely no clue about, right? Consider people talking about, mind control, right? And they're like geniuses and giving seminars on mind control. They have absolutely no clue what the mind is. 99.9% of the people are thinking they're the body. If you're thinking with the body, your knowledge, your perspective of that knowledge is unauthorized, because you are speaking on a platform of ignorance. So therefore, the knowledge that is being given is basically a higher level of knowledge within the dimension of ignorance. And that is the Bhagavatam is sharing the light, the true wisdom, transcending the body, transcending spirit, coming to the supreme spirit, true knowledge, without any imperfections. Yes, there may be some relative truths in people who are giving talks, but then there may be many misleading points. Right? For example, if somebody is speaking about the law of attraction, right? Whatever you contemplate on, you get. That's not true. Yes, what you contemplate on, you will get, not necessarily in this life. But their perspective is whatever you contemplate, you get. So like that, they don't understand the full purview of life from Krishna's perspective. They're trying to research and trying to understand life from an ascending process. Our process is descending, knowledge coming down. Therefore, it is authorized. Giridhari Professor, thank you for the wonderful class. I'm glad. Structure of the society and what intelligent person is occupied as opposed to material occupation, it gives me the object and the whole definition of Sri Krishna and its full meaning. Thank you, Shamananda Professor. Hare Krishna Prabhu. Can you explain a bit on sharing of Krishna consciousness, especially the books, literature, and of not sharing this gift we have been given? Yes, Prabhupada says if you don't share, you're a miser. And if you don't share, you lose it. So Mother Yamuna Prabhupada taught how to cook. And there was another devotee, and she asked, she didn't, she wasn't taught. So Prabhupada asked her, aren't you learning? I think it was Mother Malati or someone, aren't you learning how to cook from Yamuna? And says, no. So then Prabhupada person instructed Mother Yamuna that you have to share what I've taught you. Because if you don't share it, you will lose it. Right? And also if you share it, it becomes part of your life. It persists, it's maintained. So therefore, Prabhupada also made a point that if you say something, let's say we hear something, right? Something that we read in Prabhupada's talk, that beautiful clip, Prabhupada's talking about bhakti, right? And Prabhupada actually goes, becomes emotional because he's realized, he's seen Krishna. So he knows what bhakti is. And, we're inspired by that. Now you can share that with 3 people. If you share that with 3 people by explaining what you felt, what you heard, you will always remember what you share. So sharing is a very important part of devotional cultivation. And it's also a very powerful and important part of this material creation. Only in this material creation do we have this wonderful service opportunity to share. And if you're not a good preacher, no problem. There are many devotees, they would go out distributing books simply by saying, Hari Bol, here's a book, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. There's Pig Peng, long story. But Pig Peng, he was Rasada Prabhu. He became one of the big book distributors. He was, this was in France. And Indra Maj shares this pastime. Pig Peng was like a tramp, unkept, dirty, staying in the streets, living in the streets. And he would regularly come to the temple in France, knock on the door, and he would ask for food. So the devotees would give him food. He could barely even speak. It's like, very like mumbling. So he couldn't even speak properly and very unkept. So he would regularly come to the temple and he would stay near the temple in like a bush. So Prabhupada arrived in France, came to the temple, and Prabhupada would go for a morning walk. So on one morning walk, the Prabhupada was in front, devotees on the side, and Pig Pen was there. So Pig Pen jumped out of the bush, completely dirty, unkept, and tried to go towards Prabhupada's feet, lotus feet. When the devotees saw that, those in front immediately got a hold of him, threw him back into the bush, because they didn't want him, he's dirty, didn't want him to touch Prabhupada's feet. And Prabhupada kept on walking. In the meantime, Prabhupada came back to the temple. When Prabhupada came back to the temple, all the devotees were behind. And Prabhupada walked into the temple room. As soon as Prabhupada walked in the temple room, guess what? Pigpen was right in the center of the temple waiting for Prabhupada. And now this time, because Prabhupada was in front, the devotees at the back, they couldn't quickly come and stop Pigpen. And Pigpen fell on Prabhupada's feet. Prabhupada took his hand and caressed his head, his hair, with love and devotion. And Prabhupada said, it's okay. It's okay. And everybody just stood because they couldn't stop Prabhupada. And now they're seeing Prabhupada giving his blessings to this unkept tramp. And then Prabhupada gave a talk. Pigpen was sitting there. And then Prabhupada left the temple room, and the devotee was thinking, now what to do with him? And Prabhupada gave him mercy. So Pigpen is sitting there. So then the devotee said, okay, let's wash him up, shave him up. So they washed him up, shave him up. And they gave him some service to wash in the kitchen. So that's how he started doing his service. And he would continue doing, they would feed him, he would do his service. And slowly he started learning, started able to speak. And one day he saw the devotees jumping into the Sankirtan vehicle. So he immediately jumped into the Sankirtan vehicle sitting in front. And Indra Maharaj asked him, Pigpen, what you up to? And he started learning, so he started learning, and he was able to now slowly communicate, in English. So he said, Sankirtan. And Maharaj was thinking, oh my goodness, like what is, he's going to like create a disturbance. Okay, maybe we'll take him, we'll park the van and he can wash the car. So they took him. It was early, so the devotees would have breakfast at the parking lot, and then they would go out distributing. So they stopped at the spot where they're going to distribute. They got off to prepare the breakfast. In the meantime, Pigpen, he had a bag of books and immediately jumped out and ran. Indra Maharaj couldn't catch him. He ran and he started from a distance they could see. He's distributing and the books are going. And they're wondering, what is he telling them? And Pigpen comes back with an empty bag. The devotees are still having breakfast. Maharaj asked him, Pigpen, what were you telling them? And he was telling the people, Prabhupada, save me. Prabhupada, save me. Prabhupada, save me. And he's showing the books. That's all he's telling them. Prabhupada, save me, showing the books. And that's how he sold. Why? Because the super soul is in his heart. Super soul is also in the heart of the living entity. That sincerity, that connection, it can be sensed, can be felt. So anyone can really go and give the message out, especially in the form of Prabhupada's books, because you're giving personal association of Prabhupada through his books. So therefore, it's a very important activity and gift. Madan Navkishore says, thank you, Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Perhaps in future class, it would be beneficial if you could review the 10 offenses against the holy name. So we cover the 10 offenses against the holy name. In fact, it'll be in one of the purports. No doubt it'll come. But we covered this specifically in depth in our Japa Ashraya course. Hare Krishna Prabhu, please explain how to do strong sadhana and what to do in sadhana. So strong sadhana, again, this is also covered in our Japa Ashraya course, but in essence, basically, best start early in the morning and try to be attentive as the start. Early in the morning and be attentive. And again, many of these questions that you're asking in the purports of Srila Prabhupada's Bhaktivedanta purports, it's all there. And over time, we will come, yes, there may be specific causes that we present that's more focused. So if your interest is just like on our channel, you will find Bhagavad Gita there, you'll find Nectar of Instructions there, Sri Upanishad. So there are specific causes if you want to fine tune. We'll also be uploading our Japa Shraya course, and that can obviously help you fine tune those specific areas. But otherwise, it's obviously there in the Bhaktivedanta purports. If you need specific instructions, you can always touch base with me. Where and how can we join the courses on Japa that you are rendering. Okay, so I will once I upload the course, I will share that in the YouTube channel and in Facebook in the WhatsApp. All right, wonderful. Thank you very much for all your wonderful appreciation. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. It is only by Srila Prabhupada's mercy that we're able to share this. And next week will be even a more, if you think this is exciting and this is wonderful, well, next week is going to be even more eye-opening because we're going to go through the actual stages of bhakti, like having a roadmap. So you know exactly what to look forward to, what you're going to experience. And we're going to cover that next week. So thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.